This video is sponsored by Sakurako. Alright, so surprisingly we got the Chapter 387 spoilers, and I know that Jump is supposed to be on break this week in Japan, and it is, but if you know how the spoilers work, sometimes we get them super early because of weeks like this, and this is the case. And this chapter is pretty monumental for, I don't know, mixed reasons. And I'll get into it, of course. I know a lot of you already know the big reveal in this chapter. It's already trending on Twitter. But I'll get into it, of course, when we talk about it. So let's just get into it. The chapter begins with Getten and Compress talking in a prison. Getten says that the Himura family blood is thick, and that they were a clan with many different lineages, all very rich and prideful. But the more the age of quirks advanced, the more prestige they lost. He says that they didn't want their blood to get mixed to other families, and Compress comments that it's a mix of family pedigree and quirk discrimination. Spinner told him about this. As a result, they started getting married to distant relatives and almost went extinct. The last desperate measure was to sell all those from the main line to arranged marriages, like what happened to Rei. The other lineages slowly disappeared, and Getten, who is also a Himura, was taken in and raised by Redestro. So, yeah, first off, we can see that we're going way off of what had happened in the previous chapter. We saw that whole thing with All Might facing off against All for One, using that support gear that he had in a briefcase / his car, which may or may not make this All Might Hulkbuster or some kind of armor. That's not being touched on at all in this chapter. We're actually coming over to a prison, which I'm not sure which one. I don't think it's Tartarus. Maybe it is. I don't know if that's still functional or operational, but this is where Getten and Compress were placed after the last war. We haven't really seen them since, and we're getting the reveal here that Getten is a Himura. This is important because Himura is the maiden name of Rei Todoroki, who is Shoto's mom and Endeavor's wife. So that makes sense to me. I never really put two and two together because, to be honest, I never really cared about Getten that much. I don't think he's a bad character or anything. I do like the line that he dropped in the war where he called heroes dogs of the state. That always stuck with me, but aside from that, he was just kind of there. But I like it. It makes sense. All comes together. Ice quirks, white, gray, platinum hair, whatever the color is. Cute complexion. Makes sense to me. And the fact that their bloodline almost went extinct, and I don't know why they were discriminated against. Ice quirk is pretty boss to me, and it's cool aside from that. So I guess it has something else to do with that maybe, but this explains why Rei's family arranged the marriage with Endeavor. That was one of the things that we weren't too sure of when we got that flashback, finding out how they got married, but this is all coming together here. So this is something that I'm totally on board with. I like Horikoshi bringing everything full circle, connecting all the tissue and making it set and making it make sense. But after this, things, I don't know. They kind of start to go off the rails. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Sakurako. Sakurako is a monthly authentic Japanese snack subscription box. Sakurako is also supporting local Japanese snack makers because each box comes with 20 traditional, authentic, and artisan Japanese snacks, including Japanese tea and a special Japanese tableware. This month, it's a Sakurako tea glass. It also comes with this awesome booklet that gives you information on all of the snacks in the box, as well as information about Japan and its culture. This month's box is Moonlit Sakura. Spring is almost over in Japan, but you can still get a taste of the Sakura season from the comfort of your home. This month, Sakurako and Tokyo Treat are inviting you to join in on the Yozakura experience, which is the Japanese tradition of viewing cherry blossoms at night. The beautifully designed cherry blossom box contains exclusive and seasonal snacks that won't be available once spring is over. Indulge in the unique flavors of Hanawara Bimochi, Sakura Ame, and Sakura Sweet Potato from Sakura. And of course, first I have to make this special tea that we get with Sakurako every month. This time it's peach hibiscus tea. This might be my favorite tea that I've got from Sakurako so far. Super flavorful, very floral, but it also has that nice white peach taste to it. And I get to use it with this awesome Sakurako tea glass. It paired so nicely with this rich Ogura bread loaf. And then for something salty, I tried the Ume salt and vinegar senbai. Guys, I'm not kidding. This is by far the best salty snack I've ever gotten from Sakurako, maybe even Tokyo Treat too. This thing is incredible, and you have to try it for yourself. So guys, celebrate the Sakura season and get additional bonus items in your box every month for life.
use code HANAMI at Sakurako checkout, and don't forget to check the promotions link, which is in the description. Thanks, guys.
Getten then says that with the passing of the generations, quirks have become more complex, and sometimes even the users themselves are not fully aware of their genetics and the full extent of their power. He then asks Compress to tell his story since they have plenty of time. Cut to Endeavor and Dabi's fight, and they're now 800 meters away from Gunga. Endeavor hears the news about Dabi's impending explosion and realizes that not only the civilians will be hit, but also the heroes who are trying to contain Toga's clones. So yeah, we found this out, I don't know, the previous or the chapter before that Dabi was like condensing all of his heat and energy into his core, and he was essentially going to explode, like almost literally like a nuke. Like he was going to like clear a 3-kilometer radius, which is insane. So they're still trying to mitigate that, and that is going to be one of the focuses of this chapter, of course. He is exhausted and extremely hurt due to his fight against All for One, but Dabi goes straight to him, shouting, "Look at me, Dad!" Endeavor visualizes Kid Toya saying, "Look what I can do now," while smiling. What comes next is a giant fire punch. Flame pillars come out of the ground, and Endeavor asks him to put out the fire, but Toya just keeps shouting, "Look at me, and let's play, Natsu." Endeavor realizes that he is barely able to think anymore, and wonder how he's still alive with such hot flames. He extends his hands towards Dabi's chest, and starts thinking to himself, there are two kinds of phenomenons when someone is close to death: awakening an already existing ability, like what happened to Bakugo in the previous war, or developing a brand new type of ability. And what happened to Toya? He has ice coming out of his chest. He inherited Rei's quirk. Endeavor begins to remember everything that happened and says that it's all his fault. He intended to go on living to pay for what he has done. But now, he understands that Toya will not stop repeating his mistakes. He will keep hurting others. He has failed to take care of Toya, and now that's the consequence. Endeavor says that he will not let his son die alone, and won't let him involve anyone else in his revenge. Endeavor then holds Dabi and begins to fly. He takes advantage of his son's flames to propel them as high as possible, but the heat causes him to start losing consciousness. When all seems lost, Rei appears besides the two and starts to use her ice on Dabi. End of chapter. So yeah, that's the reveal. Dabi has Rei's ice quirk, and I know, this has been talked about for about 2 years now. I remember this was really big in like 2021, maybe even 2020, but it was a few years ago when this was really prominent. I was also vocally against this theory, not because it didn't make sense per se, because it does. And I have to admit that Horikoshi did lay the breadcrumbs for this to happen. You know, we found out in one of the very first Toya flashbacks, or just Endeavor speaking of him, he said that he inherited Rei's weak constitution. So that right there was kind of like, oh, it means it's like his flesh is weak, he's more susceptible to cold, but he can't use the ice quirk. Therefore, that's why it's damaging his body so much and he can't maintain the heat. Which was like the whole point of Endeavor trying to make Shoto, so that he had both quirks. Half hot, half cold. The cold to cool down the hot. And also, you know, going back to the My Villain Academia, Dabi did face off against Getten. And aside from just being the standard ice versus fire, it was more so kind of foreshadowing and kind of showing that they're cousins, I guess. And a lot of people, and you know, the crux of this theory was like the phoenix, or you know, rising from the ashes or whatever. And I'll say that if Dabi wasn't like such a unlikable, unredeemable character since his Toya reveal and has done such despicable things, I would say that, yeah, sure, give him this, I guess. But he is, in my opinion. I don't think he deserves this. I don't think he deserves to be redeemed, which might even happen here because Rei is here. And it makes sense that Rei is here. We saw that the Todoroki family was escaping from those underground elevators because they were like collapsing on them, and Gunhead was like, we need to conveniently leave these things that were elaborately set up and explained, but we have to go to the surface now. And also Dabi's nearby. So yeah. Coming up here, Rei's here using her ice quirk on Dabi, And I did want to have a moment where the Todoroki family talks to Dabi, because we haven't had that yet. And we're getting it, but with DABI'S having this ice quirk awakening. And yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. I'm not gonna say it's bad writing, because genuinely it isn't. It all makes sense. You know, this is something that could happen. It's not just some Deus Ex or whatever. I'm just disappointed is all, because I think Dabi should just die. And also, I was liking where this was going. Endeavor flying into the sky to just set off Dabi as a nuke, and they both sacrifice themselves. As Endeavor is saying here, he is going to right his wrongs. He essentially created Dabi, even though I don't think Dabi is inherently innocent here. When he was Toya, he was like just a bad kid. It's like, yeah, he didn't have the best upbringing. He was abused and not in a very healthy household altogether, but it's not an excuse for him becoming a homicidal maniac. I'm sorry. Look at Shoto. He had like a very quick character arc, which happened around like midway into the second season. And Dabi kind of just made it his identity that he hates Endeavor. So I just don't think a character like this should be rewarded. And I know the fans like him. He's cute and whatever, that's fine. But if Dabi was a better character, I would be more on board with this, but I just don't think he is. And I think that him exploding and Endeavor sacrificing himself to stop it would have been a very good and satisfying ending for both characters. But sometimes Horikoshi goes super shonen with his themes and story crafting. Sometimes I think he tries to make it like that, and it's not so much what he inherently wants, but more so feels like he must do this. Kind of like a musician who wants to make like punk rock or something, but they're signed to this studio and they're at such a high level and position and responsibility in their career that they pretty much have to make accessible radio pop, because if they don't, then they're pretty much screwed. And I feel like Horikoshi is kind of in that position sometimes. And I only say that because I've read the entire story many times, and you can kind of see where Horikoshi is coming from, genuinely, from a storytelling perspective. And then sometimes it kind of feels like he's kind of just pandering or almost forced to create a narrative that he necessarily doesn't want. Maybe that's just me incorrectly analyzing his writing, but that's just the feeling that I get sometimes with him. I don't really get that feeling with Gege Akutami or Oda, you know, the other two big three in the battle manga shonens. But that's the thoughts that I have right now. I've only read the spoilers, of course. I will review the chapter on Friday, I guess. Maybe it comes out then, maybe tomorrow. I'll probably just do it Friday, but let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. And if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.